Alright, so let's talk about my current build here. I've been on for a while. I should probably explain a little bit of background on this build. So, this is a Marauder, if you didn't know. So my first character in the Talisman League, he was Shadow using the skill Blade Vortex. Now I found at later levels, the damage he took became a lot more significant, and it didn't. It came to a point where I was having trouble dealing with enemies. So I decided to re-roll it as a Marauder. I've been wanting to play an Aegis Aurora build for quite some time. And yeah, this is what came of that. So this is a build that is built around 4 core unique items, okay? So it's built around the Aegis Aurora Champion Kite Shield. So, most important thing about this is that it has a very high block chance, which is really nice. It actually has one of the highest, if not the highest, among all unique shields now that Crested Brandis has been nerfed. But the cool thing about this is that it replenishes your energy shield by 2% of your armor whenever you block an attack. So therefore, I'm going to want high armor and high block. Okay. Then the other two uniques that support this, we have a Stone of Lazar here. So important things here: 50% of block chance applied to spells with 14% increased cast speed. So obviously faster casting helps out on Blade Vortex quite a bit, and 50% of block chance, well, that'll help me block spells. To support that, we have a pair of Rainbow Strides here, which will give us the energy shield, which we'll need for our buffer with the Aegis Aurora, and it also gives us another 24% of our block chance applied to spells. So all in all, we have 74% of our block chance applied to our spells. Now to synergize with our blocking ability and just the sheer amount of how quickly Blade Vortex casts, we have Sibyl's Paw. So the cool thing about Sibyl's Paw, we've got 8 life gained for each enemy hit by our spells, so every time one of our Blade Vortex instances hits, we're going to gain 8 life. This results in a rather large life gain per second. It's pretty darn fast. The other thing is 8% increased spell damage per 5% block chance. So my build currently had, and this rounds down to the nearest 5%, okay? So you have to hit a 5% threshold to notice an increase. So where I'm at right now, I get 84% spell damage from this because my block chance is, I believe, 63% at the current time, which counts as 60% for the sake of this. I hope they fix it so that it's much more linear, but, you know, we'll see. Core, and the rest of my gear is rare, if you didn't know. But so core things needed to make this work. So for auras, we run Grace. This character uses the Iron Reflexes Keystone to convert all of this evasion rating into armor, which of course works with the Aegis Aurora to replenish our energy shield when we block. And I run Blasphemy, which enables you to run a curse as an aura, to run Vulnerability. Now, the cool thing about this, enemies take 28% increased physical damage, which is actually a more multiplier because it's a take. So it looks at your damage after all other multipliers and increases it by 28%. In the same way, they take 33% increased damage from damage over time effects. And you may be wondering, well, this is Blade Vortex, that's a physical spell, how are you getting damage over time? And that comes from my 5-link here. We have Blade Vortex linked with Blood Magic, because I don't have the mana regen, obviously, because I invested a lot in block and other defenses. Spell Echo to cast faster. Iron Will, I have a very high amount of strength, and this provides a significant bonus, especially because I don't have much damage to speak of otherwise on the tree. And last but not least, Poison. So this makes the skill deal 10% of, as a base, 10% of the attack's physical damage per second as chaos damage for 2 seconds. Okay, so combined with other increases, this means that, well, this double dips with the vulnerability aura, and generally gives us very good damage over time since it stacks indefinitely. Okay, and then I have a gem that's leveling on here. This is, as you can see, it's an armor evasion 5-link with life and dual res, and fairly high armor evasion rating to be converted to armor with my iron reflexes. So this is essentially like a base, almost 1200 armor chest, which is okay. My helmet here, this again is nothing fantastic. This is just life and some stats, life and strength with some resist, life with some stats. I really needed the dex among other things on this build. Life, evasion, armor, resist, Rustic Sash, pretty basic stuff. But in terms of my other skills, here in my helmet we have my movement skills. So we have a Flicker Strike, linked to Fortify, Faster Attacks, and then Whirling Blades. So I can flicker and whirl between enemies to move around, and they also provide me with the Fortify buff. In my shield we have linked Enduring Cry, Increased Duration, and Immortal Call. So I self-cast all these, and essentially what that enables me to do is potentially be immune to physical damage and helpfully increase it against big, hard-hitting bosses like the Colonnade boss. Okay. In my boots here, we have a cast when damage taken setup. We have cast when damage taken level 1, linked with GMP, Arctic Breath, and Ball Lightning. You probably saw that as those mobs were attacking me. So the cool thing here is Arctic Breath. So if you didn't know anything about Blade Vortex builds, you get all the skill duration nodes on the tree, which is 90% with the ones that are commonly accessible. So that affects all our other duration skills, including Immortal Call, Enduring Cry, some of the skills, and some of the other skills I'll get to later. But it also affects the duration of this ground ice on Arctic Breath. So when we take damage, we spam Arctic Breath and Ball Lightning. The sole purpose of Ball Lightning is to generate a lot of hits quickly to regenerate life with the Sibyl's Paw. The sole purpose of this, sure, it regenerates some life, but it also leaves large amounts of chilled ground that lasts for about 2 seconds. Okay? And then in my gloves here, we have linked cast when damage taken level 10, linked with Molten Shell. This is the only spell in this particular item that triggers off the cast when damage taken, because other ones are too high level. Originally, my Tempest Shield was also in here, but I decided it'd be much better to trigger it manually because it'll do a lot more damage then. And it pretty much never goes down if I actually fight. And then, of course, my Flame Golem. For flasks, we just got some life flasks and an armor flask. So if we look at my defenses tab here, you can see I have over 11,000 armor, which means that my shield here, when I block, will give me roughly 220 ES or so. My block chance is 63%, my chance to block spells is 48%. With a few more levels and correctly rolled jewels, I can get my block chance to 66%, which will in turn have my spell block chance at 50%, which will be really, really nice. Okay? As you can see, I have overcapped resistances, and my cold res is 80%. That's because of the 5% from this shield. Now, the tooltip DPS may not seem that fantastic. It's only 1100, which is only a third of what my actual Shadows was, but this character is far more survivable, and his damage will only get better as his gear and his tree improves. So, as you saw, a bunch of those guys didn't really do anything to me, I just stood there and talked. So, let's actually mess around a little bit here. So, I don't typically play the Dread Lake anymore, except when I'm trying to create talisman sets. So, and I've kind of already demonstrated how tanky the character is. Let's see. Let's wait for my Blade Vortex stacks to expire here. Okay, let's stand in the middle of the mob. Watch my health indicator, okay? You can see that my shields are flickering a little bit. But they've only dropped a few times, and when they have dropped, they went back up immediately. And a fair amount of the monsters that are attacking us are just dying. So, anyway, as you can see, you could pretty much go AFK in an area like this, and you wouldn't die. Okay? Yeah. We're just not really taking any damage. That's the power of Aegis, Aurora. Alright, let's get our golem back up. You may say, well, how is your damage against bosses? Oh, and I still need to show the passive tree. I will do that very soon. But we need to get a little bit of gameplay. I'm going to find Vol here. Now, one of the interesting things, I've done a little bit of math about just how much poison increases your DPS, okay? And one of the things is that the duration of the poison is also affected by your skill duration. One of the big things there is that, well, because I have all the skill duration from the tree, my poison lasts nearly twice as long. Alright, First of all, I'm just going to stand here. Make sure to stay on him. I'll face tank this. As you can see, it did some amount of damage, but it was recovered really quickly. I didn't even pot. Alright, so let's go back to town and let's deal with this guy who wants to buy our item. Chimeric Slicer. Alright. I gotta find it, buddy. Chimeric Slicer, Prong Dagger. There it is. Okay.
How may I be of assistance?
Alright, so let's take a look at the passive tree for this character, shall we? Okay, as you can see, again, I am clearly a Marauder. 147 strength, 144 intelligence, 168 dexterity. We've pathed into block clusters here, here, and here, as well as you can see iron reflexes there. We may get unwavering stance eventually, but we'll see. I haven't needed it yet. Block cluster here. And those block clusters are enough to give us pretty much all the block we have. We also have block from this jewel here. Our other jewels, we have damage over time and spell damage with a shield, and chance to block spells with shield with area damage and some resistance. Again, we have all the skill duration nodes readily accessible on the tree. There's one more over here, but it's kind of hard to get to. Future pathing. So, things I'm going to get in the future, I'm going to get this Chaos Damage and Life node over here. Chaos Resist and Life node over here. Excuse me. I'm probably going to get, I may go into Unwavering Stance, the Armor nodes here, as well as the Life nodes over here. Probably fill this Life Wheel. I'm going to fill up a few more Jewel sockets. I'm probably going to get this one down here. Yeah, I mean, for terms of DPS, the build is pretty much where... Oh, I'm also going to fill out this Life Regeneration armor cluster here, which will be really nice. So, yeah, we'll see how things go in the future. This character's been really fun, and it's been very fun to just tank the living daylight out of everything. I also potentially could try to go into the witch area here for damage and that kind of thing, but I'm kind of hesitant to do it because I don't really feel like it's worth the investment. I was considering using the Repentance unique gloves on this character, but I kind of determined that the amount of intelligence I'd have to invest would lead me to dropping too many things elsewhere, and it wouldn't really be worth it. So, yeah, that's the character right now, and yeah, he's pretty darn fantastic. I don't know how much longer he'll last. I wish I could have a build that had this amount of tankiness, but also had better DPS. But the DPS has improved a lot, and it'll get a lot better as my gems get higher levels. Yeah. Spell goes about to level. Yeah, and of course as the quality of my gear improves as well. I've been